Tutorial on how to do the CAM for part 1 of the assignment section 2. So, a little introduction. CAM is a computer-aided manufacturing which allows difficult geometry and parts to be machined using CNC machines. It requires code in the form of G code or M code, which is generic or specific to the machine, and it just gives the machine instructions for tool selection, geometry, feed rate, RPM, etc., etc. So first of all, you need a SolidWorks part or any modeling software part, and you also need CAM software. So today we're going to be using SolidCAM. And to start off, you need a part, and then you need to go to SolidCAM part new. And we've got two fundamental machining techniques here, either milling or turning. Today we're going to be using milling. So first you need to say where you want to save the file to. So select your location in your computer. And you want to save it as an external part and OK. So the next step is you need to define what machine we're going to be using. So I'm just going to use the default G-milling machine. This will be specific to whatever you're using. So the first part is to define the stock material. So this is the block of raw material, say the metal or like cast iron or steel that we're going to be machining this part out of. So you want to define stock and click show, and you want to click on your part. And here you can see it's created this box around the part, and the dimensions and geometry are a little bit bigger than your part. In the real world, this will be ideal because you want to remove some of this material around the outside to get, those perfect parallel surfaces and a nice surface finish. But for today, I'm just going to specify the geometry to all 0. This will just make it easier so we don't have to do those finishing cuts. So once we define the stock, we can select. Next, we need to define the coordinate system and the geometry. So there's a few ways to do this. First, you can just select the face, so any face on the part. Again, you can see it automatically creates this geometry with points all on the corners on the highest faces. And you can see down here, it's selected the origin at the bottom left of the part. To change this, you can pick your own origin. So if we click pick origin, we can say select right in the center of the part, and it's going to move the origin to the center. Depending on how you want to machine this part will define where you want to put the origin. In real world, on an engineering drawing, you would probably want to machine from the center and work your way out, but it just depends on your part. So once we define our coordinate, we can select OK. Select OK. And that is everything set up for the stock material and geometry of our part. So we can now begin generating the actual milling processes. So the first step you want to do is you want to create a tool table. So what we need to do here is go into tool and then the part tool table, and you want to do add tool. So this is all of your tools here. Generally, you would just be using the end mill for a milling process. If you wanted to get some spherical geometry, you would have to use a ball nose end mill. And there's all different types of mills here that you can use that are specific to different procedures. So if you select end mill, and here you can see all of the specifications for the end mill that you want to save. So generally, depending on your part, say you were milling a 6mm hole, you would obviously need a 6mm end mill. And you want to add tools that can create the part without changing the tool too many times. So I'm going to use a 6mm end mill, and we can click save, and it's added one part here, one tool. So we can add another tool. I'm going to use a 10mm end mill. So change 10, save. There you can see we have a 10mm end mill. And we can save and exit. So now we've created two tools that we're going to use to machine this part. And the next step will be to actually add the milling operation. So under setup, right click, and we can click add milling operations. and you want to use 3D milling. So the first step is you need to define the either geometry where it's going to machine. So you need to click define, and there's two ways to do it. You can do working area or working on faces. The best way is to work on the area. So you can click this, tick the box, and define the area. So what you want to do is select two edges where you want to machine in between. So I'm going to select this edge, click OK, and the outer edge of the stock, click OK. And you can see here it's created two layers. So the milling machine has identified two layers, this first level and the second level. It's going to machine everything down in between these two layers. So we can click OK to our area. So when that's done, click OK. The next step is to define the tool. So select tool, select, and see here we've got our two selected tools. I'm going to use the 10mm end mill, click OK. Now we've got the levels. So upper level, this is defining where the tool is going to start. So if we want to start on the upper level, we want to start up here and define that as the 0 point, the starting point of the tool. And the lower level is where we want the tool to stop. So we want it to stop on this secondary layer down here, which is only 6mm down from the starting level. So we click OK. And the next is define the actual milling technique. So you got 2 or 3 options that you would generally use. Hatch, where it goes in, you can see the diagram here, runs along the whole part, or contour, which runs it around in circles around the outside until you get to the center. So for this, we're going to use contour. So click contour, and here you can see the overlap of the tool from each pass. So 0.5 is generally okay. If you have a bigger tool, you can make the overlap bigger to cover more area. And the step down is every time it passes over the material, it's going to step down 5mm from that upper level 0 point. So for this, because you want a nicer surface finish, you can actually mill a bit smaller, so go a 2mm step down. So if we wanted to machine 6mm in total, what's going to happen, it's going to step down twice, or 2mm every single time it goes around. So you're going to have 3 steps, and that's now all set up. You can hit save and exit. And what happens is it generates this CAM procedure. And what you need to do is calculate. You see here, it's generated this tool path. So you can see it's got 3 layers and it's going continuously around the edge of this stock until it creates this or removes this layer. So we can simulate this. Go by 3D. And here's your little stock, and you can set how fast you want the simulation to go. So just set it right in the middle, hit play, and you can see this is what the tool is going to do. So we can also have a look at what actually our block is going to look like. So this was our stock block before we added this milling procedure. And once this milling procedure is done, we select after operation, and you can see it's removed that layer, and we've just got this top ellipse that we want in our part. So that's cool. You can get out of this. And the next step is to add the next milling procedure. So again, setup, add milling operation, 3D milling, define. So for this, we're going to use the select faces geometry. So we can define. And there's a 1mm step down from this face to this face. So we would select these 2 faces. Now the machine knows we want to machine on these 2 surfaces. Select OK. Select your tool. So we're going to use our 6mm end mill. Select OK. The levels. So upper level, set it to the 0, which is not that actually. We can just say 0. OK. And the low level, which is actually this edge here, which is only 1mm down from our top level. And technology, for this, we can just do the hatch and the step down of 1mm. Save and exit. And we can generate this. You can see here the milling toolpath. It's going to step that down 1mm. You can also simulate that as well. You can see that's what the toolpath is going to do. And this is our block after the 2 milling operations. You can see it's got that 1mm little step down there. Now for the final milling procedure, we want to remove all this material inside, so we can add another milling procedure, 3D milling. Define our geometry again. We're going to use working area this time. Define. So again, we're going to go from our upper level, which is here, select OK, and down now to the lowest level that we want it to machine to. And now it's going to machine everything in between these two layers. Select OK, select our tool. So we want to use our 6mm end mill, because these radiuses in here are, I believe, 6mm. So we're going to match the radius of these with the tool. So 6mm tool. Levels, upper level, again, define that to the 0 point. Lower level, define that to the lowest point. And then your milling procedure, we're going to use contour in the step down of 3mm. Save and exit, calculate. And you can see it's going to remove all the material on the inside there. So we can simulate this again. You can see the toolpath, what it's going to do. So it's going to do this procedure 3 times, or 4 times actually. Every time it's going to step down. And we can have a look at our part, and there it is. That's our final part that we wanted. Everything is complete. So the milling procedure is done. So the final procedure is you actually need to generate this G-code and send it to the machine. So we right-click Setup, and we say G-code, and you want to generate all of the G-code. And name it whatever you want. So I'm going to call it Part 2 or Part 1. Okay, and it's generated your G-code. And you want to save this to your computer or wherever you want to save it to. And there we go. That's how you generate the G-code. Thank you.